Captain Ron Odom, O-D-U-M, of San Francisco, the CO of Bravo Company, the 2nd of the 502 Regiment. Captain Odom, how did your big battle start?
It started on the Lima Zulu, about half an hour after we got to the Lima Zulu. It was a very rough Lima Zulu. The grass was burning, so we could not move and set up the way we would like to. Also, there were mines on the Lima Zulu, so we had to get into a file in order to move off of it.
Let me just stop you for 1 second and get you to...
The landing zone was mined and it was on fire, so we had a very difficult time breathing and seeing and moving.
Why was it on fire? Had you prepped it heavily?
Roger. Yes. The artillery had started the fires. It was elephant grass, and apparently it was dry and it was burning. Finally, we got moving, and we were moving to the northwest direction, the way we wanted to go. The lead platoon got just to the edge of the LZ, and they were hit by a rocket fire. The platoon leader was hit by a rocket. It hit his pack, and he was severely wounded. The firefight there lasted for about 15 minutes, and we put heavy artillery in and stopped it. During this 15-minute period, the colonel came in, and he went right up to the front to see what was going on. And he helped us out a little bit, with a few suggestions, and generally, just having him there gave everybody that much. We felt plenty confident. If he felt safe to be with us, then we knew we were going to be okay.
Did you think it was all over after that first 15 minutes?
Yes, we did. Artillery came in and blasted the heck out of these NVAs, just covered the hillside, and the fire stopped. So I walked back with the colonel up to the top of the landing zone, and we were waiting for his chopper to come in. We all generally figured, well, it's over. Normally it would have continued. If the enemy was there, they would have fired us up because we were not in a good position. Also, we had a couple of wounded men with slight wounds, concussion from the explosion and so forth, to get out. We were moving them up, and the colonel's chopper was going to come in. It was getting late. This was about 5:30, and I knew that I could not move very far off the Lima Zulu to the landing zone, so the main thing I was looking for was a place to set up, which was to the east of the landing zone. So I moved one platoon over there. As soon as they got to the east end of the landing zone, again they bumped into it. Heavy contact this time. That contact started almost simultaneously. Another one from the north started with very effective sniper fire at range of about 100 meters. Several people were wounded initially, and we were all in the open. We didn't have any cover. The artillery forward observer moved up immediately, and my first sergeant moved up immediately. The artillerymen bringing artillery to within 30 to 50 meters of us, that helped a lot. It enabled us to move. The colonel at about this time got a call that the chopper would be in to pick him up at any moment, and he said, no, we're in my troops are in heavy contact, and I will stay here until it's finished.
But you did get some choppers in during the night.
Yes, choppers came in eventually, later on in the evening. We moved in and set up our perimeter, and continually we were using artillery to keep the enemy off of us, and we dug in. By this time, after those initial contacts, 2 platoons were low on ammunition, and I could see that it was going to be an all-night thing. Also, it was a beautiful mortar target. That's why we dug in. So immediately I requested more ammunition, and the ammunition finally came at about 8 o'clock, first load. Also, we had 2 machine guns, which the barrels had been rendered inoperational. We got machine gun barrels right away. The resupply was fantastic.
How can you bring choppers in when you're in the middle of a heavy firefight like that?
I could not understand it until the next day when we moved out to the north around the bottom of the hill. And I looked up to the landing zone, and I could see there was such a...
How'd you get resupply of ammunition and machine gun barrels and things like that in when you were in the middle of such a heavy firefight?
This was very hard to understand. I found out the day after the battle that it was the terrain that enabled us to do this. Normally we would have just asked the choppers to fly over and drop the stuff in, but I wanted them to try and land. They could offload the ammunition and get our casualties out at the same time. And when the first one came in and it worked, very much to everybody's surprise, they did not receive fire. It turned out that the landing zone was a plateau, The top was flat and fairly wide, about 50 meters wide, 100 meters long. The sides dropped off very steep, so the people down at the top could not see, correction, the people that were down at the bottom, looking up, all they could see was the edge. They couldn't see anything that was 20 or 30 meters back. The chopper could land, and there was no way that the enemy could fire. The enemy was close at the bottom. They were not far away from us. So this enabled us to get choppers in without receiving fire. For some reason, they didn't use their mortars on the chopper. I think it's because when the choppers were there, the gunships were supporting them. They had a mortar about 100 meters away from us at the bottom of the hill, where we could not fire on the mortar. However, the mortar could fire up and get onto the top of the landing zone.
They had rockets, too, of some kind.
Yes, they fired, I think it's called an RPG. It's a Chinese copy of a Russian rocket launcher. Carries about 5 pounds of explosive. They fired several of those at us on the landing zone. One, as I say, hit platoon leader. It's the first time that I've been here that I've seen rockets employed against troops. Normally they have so few of them that they save them for an APC, an armored personnel carrier, or a building, or fortifications. These rockets were fired just at troops.
Captain Odom, you knew that you were about to be relieved, that you were about to get out of here and go back to a nice, safe berth in the States. What did you think when this battle generated to this extent it did?
Well, I had about 10 times as much fear as I normally have, and the fact that I had that scared me even more. I thought perhaps I wouldn't be able to perform the way I'm used to. This scared me, being so short. But it turned out okay. When the colonel decided to stay, that kept me on the beam.
What other acts of heroism did you see around you?
Well, I saw, actually I didn't see any specific, because I couldn't tell who the individuals were most of the time. My forward observer, I saw him move to the front right to the exact point that was the most dangerous, because that's the way he could tell the most effective fire was. I saw my first sergeant stand out in the open, returning sniper fire at a range of 100 meters, about 6 or 8 snipers. He had rounds bounce almost right off of him, and he received fragments. At the same time he was receiving sniper fire, rifle grenades were coming in around him. I saw men moving, medics moving in the open to aid wounded men. I saw leaders moving to tell their men what to do and encourage their men. I saw my first sergeant again and platoon sergeants moving up into the open onto that Lima Zulu, or that landing zone, to get their resupply and move their wounded. All of this in the complete open. It was just a bald hill. We knew mortars had come in. They were not coming in most of the time while these men were moving on the choppers, but they knew the mortars could come in at any time. And at sometimes they were moving to aid people and get supplies out when mortars were actually coming in.
Do you have any idea of how big a force you actually faced during the night?
Not really accurate. I would say, as a minimum, a company with the reinforcements, because they had the mortars, which are not normally part of their companies, and they had many machine guns. They had good support. The rockets are normally a battalion level weapon, which is attached to companies. So I would estimate at least a company with the attached heavy weapons.
Were you surprised at the number of NVA you were able to kill in that type of an all-night contact?
No, I was not surprised at that, because the enemy, again, was not dug in. If we have contact with a dug-in enemy, then they're hard to kill, but they were not dug in either. They were in the open. They did have advantage of a lot of cover, but the artillery got a lot of them, and when they assaulted us, of course, they were just as much, but they were more in the open than we were. We had at least holes. The unusual thing was that the bodies and weapons remained there. They were so hard pressed by the artillery and the air strikes, gunship strikes, helicopter strikes, and our hand grenades. We had so many hand grenades from the resupply that we could just continually threw them. They were not able to drag their bodies off and weapons off.
So you got not only a good body count, but you got something which is perhaps more important, a good weapons count.
Yes, we got the weapons. Mostly we were sure that we had gotten the enemy. That's the things that sometimes we're fairly certain that we did them a lot of damage, but we don't have the tangible proof. There always has to remain some doubt in our minds that we actually got them. This time we didn't have any doubt in our mind.
How do you feel now about turning the company over to somebody else?
Oh, it's a mixed feeling. I don't like leaving my men. I really enjoy it. I'm glad that I don't have to be so darn afraid anymore.
This is Colonel Ralph Puckett, P-U-C-K-E-T-T, of Tifton, Georgia, the commander of the 2nd Battalion of the 502nd Infantry. Right. Colonel Puckett, what's the purpose of Operation Benton?
Operation Benton has as its mission the tracking down of the 21st North Vietnamese Army Regiment, which intelligence has reported is located in our operational area.
What's the area like?
The area is characterized by the same sort of terrain that you see on all sides of us. Very rugged terrain, generally covered very thickly with trees and underbrush, undergrowth. Very broken terrain, not too much water on which to live.
Have there been operations in this area before?
To the best of my knowledge, we are the first large-scale American unit which has ever been in here.
And what makes you think that the 21st NVA Regiment is in here?
Last night, Bravo Company of the 2nd 502nd Airborne Infantry fought a battle from about 6 o'clock in the evening to around 5 this morning. They managed to get 35 confirmed kills. The people that they found were dressed in North Vietnamese Army uniforms. Documents which the company captured indicated that these people are from the North Vietnamese Army. The weapons which they found, which Bravo Company of the 502s found, are in good shape, are modern, indicate that this is a North Vietnamese Army unit and not just local guerrillas.
So your intelligence was right on the nose.
We think so, yes.
Well, now, what are the North Vietnamese doing in this part of South Vietnam? What's their purpose in being here? Are they supporting local units or what?
It appears that they are here to, of course, support local units, but this appears to be a main force North Vietnamese Army unit, which has maintained control, as I understand, of this area for many years. And this is known as VC, Viet Cong controlled territory. I'm sure that the VC receives support both training-wise, leadership-wise, logistics-wise from the North Vietnamese Army.
From all indications, do you think they'll put up a continuing fight to protect this territory of theirs?
From all indications, yes, and we certainly hope so, because we know that we're much better than they are, and all we want to do is find them.
How long does an operation like this generally continue?
It depends on what we find in the area. The last operation that the 1st Brigade, 101st Airborne Division was on lasted for more than 50 days. We don't know how long this was going to last. We'll stay here as long as we can find the enemy.
What is different about the tactics you employ and those employed by other Army units?
The 1st Brigade stays in the field. We're known as the Nomads of Vietnam. Our units go out and stay. Normally we send a company out with 5 days rations. We do not go back to that company unless we have to get in for a medical evacuation or some emergency problem. But our companies go out, they operate on what they start out with. And they operate from 3 to 7 days. The idea being to get into the area and keep moving until they can find Charlie, and then keep on his tail until they find him, fix him, and lick him.
Now, most of your contact in the past year or so has been with Viet Cong troops. Is there a difference in fighting Viet Cong and North Vietnamese regulars?
Well, I'm not experienced enough to know, having just arrived and taken over the battalion about 2 weeks ago. From all I've heard, there is a big difference. The North Vietnamese Army is a regular force unit. It is a trained fighting arm of North Vietnam. They're good troops.
And the VC, on the other hand?
Oh, the VC are also good, but they operate more as guerrillas, hit and run sort of tactics. They're well trained themselves, but I believe that the Army units, the North Vietnamese Army units, operate in greater strength than the VC normally do.
Do you like to start up on the top of a hill and work down rather than start down in the valley and work up?
We certainly do. It helps both physically and psychologically. If you know, in Korea and all past wars, we've had to start in the valley and work our way to the top. That gives the defendant the advantage because he is on the high ground looking down your throat. Here in this area, when the battalion came in, we had 5 elements that assaulted into our operational area. Everyone was able to start at the top, close to the highest piece of ground in their area, and then work downward.
So here you are sitting up on top of the hill today, and you'll be moving down through these valleys in the days to come.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good. Colonel Puckett, what's the purpose of Operation Benton? Well, how do you know that these enemy troops are North Vietnamese and not VC? Cut for just a second. What kind of terrain what kind of terrain is this you're operating in? Do you like to start up at the top of these hills and work down? Okay, I think that's... Roll 4, continuing with PFC Wahlberg. Were you afraid?
Yeah, I was a while back there, you know. After you really get into it, you don't even think about it. You just go ahead and really put it on them. cut no slack on them.
Well, when you found yourself having to take over that fire team, did you find that some of the other guys were a little shaky?
At first they were, but after a while they calmed down and picking up grenades. We're all lobbing in there. I think anyone can make a good baseball team because we're really lobbing in there. We had grenades coming at me. I had one that came about 1.5 feet in front of me. I was looking at it and I picked it up and threw it back. I saw it the next morning even go off as a dud. As far as I'm concerned, that was a happy birthday present.
It was your birthday?
Yeah, it was my birthday.
Why do they call you the Padre?
Padre, I don't know. Since I came here, I carry a Bible with me and all kinds of medals here. And, going really holy over here because I feel that one way you can make is to believe in God a lot, which I definitely
And that
do
night,
now.
that night helped.
That's right.
Good enough. Thank you, Lyle. Just hang on there for 1 second, will you? And let's get some.
58 more days.
It wasn't the biggest battle of the war, but it was one of the big ones as far as company-size operations are concerned. And for the 150 men of Company B, it's a night that will long be It wasn't the biggest battle of the war, but it was one of the biggest company-size operations. Again. It wasn't the biggest battle of the war, but it's one of the biggest company-size operations in Vietnam. And for the 150 men of Company B, it's a night that will long be remembered, a night when all of them became heroes to each other. Steve Rowan, CBS News, with Company B on Operation Benton. Once more. It wasn't the biggest battle of the war, although it certainly was a major... It wasn't the biggest battle of the war, although it was one of the largest and longest company-sized battles in Vietnam. And for the men of Company B, it'll long be remembered as the night when all of them became heroes to each other. Steve Rowan, CBS News, with the 101st Airborne on Operation Benton.
First Oak Leaf Cluster is awarded to Captain Ronald G. Odom for gallantry in action against a hostile force on 13 and 14 August 1967 in the Republic of Vietnam. The Bronze Star Medal is awarded to Captain Ronald G. Odom for meritorious service in connection with military operations against an armed hostile force during the period 16 January 1966 through 16 August 1967 in the Republic of Vietnam. Department of the Army, Company B, 2nd Battalion Airborne, 502nd Infantry, APL San Francisco 96347. Unit orders number 14, dated 15 August 1967. The undersigned, Captain Richard K. Boyd, assumes command.
And I hope that you'll pass it on to all the people in your company. Today is a day of mixed emotions. It's a day of goodbye to Captain Ronald Odom, who's commanded the company for the past 8 to 10 weeks. He's on his way to an assignment at the Infantry School, Fort Benning, Georgia. He's done an outstanding job in leading this company through Malheur, Operation Hood River, and the initial phase of Operation Benton. You've done well in the past. Your greatest battle was that which you fought only 2 nights ago on August 13, 14, 1967. On that night, indications are that this company held off the major portions of a Vietnamese Army regular hardcore battalion. You did an outstanding job. On that hill which you defended, the acts of heroism were common. That hill was swept by heavy automatic weapons, mortar, rocket, and grenade fire. What you did made me even prouder to be a member of the United States Army. I am proud to have had this company and Captain Odom under my command. He and you have done an outstanding job. This is also a day of welcome to Captain Dick Boyd, who comes to us with a previous experience as an advisor to the 1st Vietnamese Army Ranger Battalion. I look for the same sort of performance and know that I'll get it from Captain Boyd and Bravo Company. You've done an outstanding job. It is a source of great pride to have you as a member of the 2nd 502nd Airborne Infantry. Captain Boyd.
Roof, attention, hut. The Silver Star 1st Oak Leaf Cluster is awarded to Captain Ronald G. Odom for gallantry in action against a hostile force on 13 and 14 August 1967 in the Republic of Vietnam.